Good evening. Tonight I'm going to start working on getting this turnout ready to install on the layout. And I think I left off last time. It's all been blackened. The soldering spots that were still shiny have been painted over where I soldered, so those are looking good. So now comes the part where we need to fill in these gaps here with wood ties. So I've kind of changed my method of doing that over the years. I've just started a new way of doing it recently. Before, I used to lay the turnout in place and then mark off. Pretend this is just a cork road bed, and I would just mark off where the PC ties were, and then just glue wood ties in place and kind of eyeball it. And that seemed to be, I don't know, seemed to be more time consuming. And again, the fact that I was eyeballing it was sometimes problematic because I didn't quite get it even. So I started doing things a little bit different now. And what I've done is I've printed out another turnout template. And instead of printing it out on cardstock for when I built the turnout, I just did a standard sheet of paper. So, and what I'm going to do is, it's kind of a little bit the opposite. It kind of makes it a little bit easier to line these ties up nicely the way I did before. I'm going to do now, actually not the opposite. What am I talking about? I'm babbling. Let me... Yeah, it's kind of the same thing, except what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the ties directly onto the paper. You know, and here, right now, you've got these ties in place on the template, so they, the template acts as a tie template too. It kind of does double duty. Alright, so what I'm going to do now that I have this piece of paper here, I'm going to go ahead and just mark where my PC ties are. I'll just go ahead and fill that in. That's a whole bunch of them there. Draw a line there. Just put a mark on where everything is. Alright, got that there. Got that. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, you probably can't see that. Gotta zoom that out again. Zoom this out. It's always a hassle being a one-man show. The cameraman here. Anyway, let me get back to what I was doing. So, alright, let me go ahead and mark these. Like that. Just like this. Okay, go ahead. Mark where my PC ties are. Now, essentially, give you a quick overview of what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and take some basswood ties and glue them on to this piece of paper here. Actually, I'm not going to use standard Elmer's glue. I'm going to use some squeeze and caulk to do that. Seems to set up a little bit faster for me. So, glue those on there, and then what I'll do then is then use some more squeeze and caulk, and then essentially glue the turnout onto this piece of paper, like that. Then what I do is just trim it all around, and then lift the whole unit up, and just glue the whole thing in place where I want it. So that's my current method du jour. So you can actually you can get tie jigs from different companies. I know handlaidtrack.com has tie jigs, and they also sell basswood turnout ties too, so you can get them really cheap. But what I've usually done for my ties is I've been cutting my own. I kind of feel like an old timer here. We're talking about their smokes. I roll my own. No, so but for various reasons. Why haven't I gone out and purchased a bag of these ties? So like you can get 500 of them for 15 bucks. I just never got around to it. So, and I happen to have some 1/16 of an inch basswood handy. So if you're kind of at a point where you've built your turnouts but you don't have your wood ties yet, just run down to the hobby store, get some 1/16 of an inch basswood and cut them lengthwise. They don't have to be consistent in thickness because we're going to be sanding them down. They're just going to be there for show. They're just functional in any way. They're not going to hold the turnout together. So you don't have to be perfect in how thick you cut them. And it doesn't take too long to get this done. And go ahead, take my knife. Oops. Screw that one up. Okay, here we go. There. Alright, let me go do another one. And cut them about, oh, I don't know, 32nd of an inch. Just eyeball it. Because we're going to be taking a little sandpaper and just kind of sanding them down a little bit, so it's not too big of a deal if you're a little bit inconsistent in cutting them and your thickness. So go ahead and do that quick. This doesn't take too long. Okay, so I hope you've been enjoying my series. I've been getting a lot of feedback, positive feedback, and that's encouraging. So if you always felt a little bit skittish about the idea of handling your own turnouts, hopefully I've provided you with some methods or some ideas on how to get it done, and it's not too overwhelming to do. So anyway, I've got my little strips cut, and I'm just going to go ahead and see here, this way you don't have to cut them to length or anything. You can cut them a little bit long because we're going to be taking a pair of scissors and just trimming them down. So I want to go ahead and cut a bunch of these up, and I'll come back in just a little bit.